Perfect. Yeah, let's get started. We start with the pledge, correct?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
All right. Miguel Martinez.
Here.
Clara Andriola.
Present.
Ed Lawson.
Here.
Donald Abbott.
Here.
Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Alexis Hill.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Perfect. And then we'll do the pledge. Mayor Lawson, if you don't mind leading us, please.
Yep. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I think we'll move on to our clipping. Sorry, I don't have an agenda in front of me. If I can get a copy, please. Thank you. I'm still firing up.
One side right there.
Awesome.
It says adjourn.
Thank you. Is that the next motion?
Yeah, right to adjourn. Don't go to number 7 yet.
Next, thank you. Appreciate that. For next item is public comment. Do we have any public comment registered?
Seeing none.
Great. With that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve. Abbott.
Second.
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is item D, announcements and clippings. Director Robeson.
Yeah, we have several activities going on. Today, we're actually tearing out the old Wadsworth Bridge. School was just out on Wednesday, and they're already jumping on it here on Friday. They've got smaller cranes out to take out the old bridge. They will have big cranes out. The dates are July 10th and July 15th. I'll be out there for July 10th for sure. So if somebody wants to come out with me, just let me know. Just email me or whatever you want to do. Call me, text me. The other thing that's going on is we just got in our the EA for Vista Narrows. There were a bunch of comments that they gave, and they had to kind of redo big sections of it. By the way, the Corps is supposed to do the EA. We did it for them. And so we're acting almost like they're contractors in doing this. We are not required to do the EA, but we're trying to speed this up. So we got all that in just last night. Danielle did the email and got it out. So that is now in their hands, and we're some other things that typically the Corps does more of, but we're doing a lot of the work for them, trying to light a fire under them. And I am planning to go to DC this July for a meeting of the, it's called NAFSMA. It's the Flood and Storm Management Association nationwide, and they're a pretty heavy lobbying organization. I'm also going to be with my lobbyist. And I'm also probably going to talk to some congressional staff. There are a few things on our docket that we really want to make clear. One, they need to stop dilly-dallying on this permit. It's been over 5 years, almost 6 years now. Two, they need to, there's also some land bills that we keep getting put in land bills that have one opposition or another, and then the land bill doesn't get passed, but nobody's opposed to our part of the land bill on the lower Truckee River. So I want to talk to them about that. Three, there's a large FEMA grant fund that just came loose in the last month or two, and we are planning to put together an application for a $20 million grant for the Vista Narrows project. So we want to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row on that. And we're already starting to work on that grant. I've got Danielle working on it, Mike working on it, Deborah working on it. So we're really trying hard to get that grant because it would really help us with our finances, for all the things that we're trying to do. So I think that's about it for now for announcements.
Thank you, Director Robeson. With that, we will close the item and move on to our consent items. Are there any items that any of the members would like to pull off? If not, then I'll look for a motion.
Public comment.
Or public comment. Thank you so much for the reminder. Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none.
Great. Now we'll look for a motion on the consent items.
Make a motion to approve the items on consent.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Perfect. With that, we'll move on to action item or item 3, discussion and possible action to approve an agreement for professional engineering services with Kimley Horn and Associates for the Reno Tahoe International Airport Berm Project. Director Robeson.
Yeah, and this is the third of the new design projects and the final of these design projects that we put out at the beginning of the year. We went through the selection process. This is our chosen by unanimous choice of a subcommittee or a group from the TAC. And we worked through negotiations and got this contract together. Next slide, please. So the airport berm, the project really protects not only the airport, but the Reno industrial area. It protects much of the South Bank area down south of where the river is. And the berm itself will need to meet FAA safety parameters, so it cannot be a big levee or a flood wall or something like that. It needs to be a very gradual berm. And the biggest challenge of this project is ensuring cut and fill and getting adequate fill material for the berm, along with airport coordination. So we wanted to get a contractor that was good at both of those things, and that was something we scored heavily in the choosing of the contractor. Next slide, please. So the selection process was, we put this out on, I believe, January 6th. There were, in the end, there were 6 firms or teams that applied for this. We had a 7-member team of TAC members, and one was actually from the airport, so it wasn't all TAC members. But we had 7 members that went through all the statement of qualifications, looked at them. We scored them. We found 2 that were a little bit higher than everybody else. Then we came back and did an interview on the top 2, and we had a unanimous decision for the firm that we chose, which was Kimley Horn. And that firm, that team also has HDR as well as Crawford and CME as geotechs. And it was very strategic how they put together their team. CME is the primary geotech for the airport, so they already have all the, OKs and all that, and they know how to work the airport. Crawford will do a lot of the analysis, so that was smart. And Kimley Horn actually has a large staff of airport specialists here in Reno that do work throughout the West, and so they were very adept at doing this sort of a project. So that's how they won the competition. They also have experience downstream, whereas Crawford has done Rock McCarran, and upstream, HDR is involved in the GSR project. The SOQ asked for an approach, and that approach was matched by what they did in their scope, and so the scope is matching the SOQ quite well. And after negotiations, we came up with what we came up with. Next slide, please. So the highlights of this, it's a little over 1.1 million. Key team members I've already talked about. The duration, the contract's for 2 years. The schedule is for 17 months. The key outputs are geotechnical analysis. That's going to be really important because of the cut and fill and the fact that it's a berm and all that. It's not really as technical as a levee or a flood wall, but it is important to get the geotechnical right. Survey, there are survey outputs. There's that have to be done for the airport. There's coordination forms with the airport. And then the concept layout and the refinement, 30 and 60%. So those are the key outputs of this project. And I want to just make one thing clear about all these 3 projects. When we get to the 30%, we will get a decent cost analysis. And at that point, that gives us something firm to put into the strategic plan. The strategic plan right now has cost analysis by a very experienced civil engineer that's been in the field for 40 years. But I'm speaking in third person, that's ridiculous. But it's my estimates, and I'm trying to do the best I can, but it's always better to get a real estimate from a real design. And so at that point, I think we will know a lot about exactly what we need to borrow, what we need to do, how we will do the finances, and how we will schedule from all three of these. And it also feeds into Rock McCarran as well. Vista Narrows, as soon as we get that permit, is ready to go. And we hope we get that grant as well. But the Rock McCarran and these three, it's really a dance of knowing what the costs are, knowing what our loans can be and things like that, and to have an estimate based on an actual design really helps us with bonding and loans. So I'm excited that we're going to get these numbers for our overall project. Next slide, please. So the area, as you can see, gets flooded pretty good in a 100-year flood. This is you can see the runways get flooded. Some of the terminal areas, water surrounds them. I wouldn't say the terminals actually get flooded or the gates or whatever, because they sit up a bit. But the point is this is really disruptive to the airport, and it's really disruptive to some of the businesses over in the Reno industrial area. I think RTC is surrounded, so we'll help them out. Anyways, next slide, please. So this is the organizational chart of this project, and I don't want to go over it, but it is led by Kimberly Horn, and there is a lot of talent on this team that has Truckee River experience, like Crawford, like Mitch Blum from HDR, like the Heath Hildebrandt has got years and years of airport experience. And like I said, they work throughout the West from their Reno office. So it's kind of a very strong team for this kind of project. Next slide, please. The schedule is, once again, it's about a 17-month schedule. It's laid out. We do not have a lot of public interaction like we did with Rock McCarran, because it's kind of behind the gates. It's just building a berm. There is no recreational component because it's behind fences and gates. So the whole thing is really making sure the airport's okay with it, letting the public know what we're doing, and just making sure that we have the protection levels right. A lot has been said about, well, we're spending so much on recreation on Rock McCarran. Well, we're not on some of these other projects for various reasons. So when you average it out, we're not really spending that much on recreation for the whole project. That just came up the other day. I was like, well, that's kind of, that's something to think about, that you can't just look at Rock McCarran, you have to look at the whole project. Next slide, please. This is the budget and the different components of the budget. I know I put this in the staff report and everything. And the big ones are the geotechnical and the basically the civil is the big over half the budget is basically on those two things. And there is a pretty strong component on hydraulic modeling. This is a not to exceed account, so it may not get that high. I wonder if hydraulic modeling will really go that high, since we've kind of solved that for other projects that surround this project. But we'll see. And so anyways, this is what we have for the overall budget. Next slide, please. So this is it. We have a possible motion. This is from our staff report with adding the dollar amount is all. And I'll take any questions about this.
Thank you, Director Robeson. Are there any questions? Anybody? Yeah.
I'll
Director
just make a comment. Having lived through a number of these floods and watching the airport flood, could you show that last picture, actually?
Oh, yeah.
Just for a moment. I've seen this picture so many times. It's an iconic picture from the 1997 flood, as I recall.
Yes.
And maybe, or is it from 2005 flood?
No, it's from 97.
Okay. Anyway, seeing this kind of picture and understanding not just that it's an inconvenience when the airport closes, but it's directly affects our economy, both flights in and out, the cargo that comes in and out, the mail comes in and out, packages come in and out, all through the airport. It's a critical economic driver for our region, and to have it shut down for days upon days is rather similar to when in 2005, I-80 collapsed, 395 was closed, you couldn't get to Carson City. It's such a major transportation hub for our community that I'm so excited about this project, that we would actually be moving forward and have this team on board and be able to make sure that the airport doesn't flood in these big floods. I think it's incredibly exciting.
I'm very excited too, but remember, it's not just this project. Rock McCarran also protects the airport,
Yeah.
and so does GSR. So
Right.
the whole thing integrated together is what's going to protect that airport.
Sure. And I didn't mean that this is.
No,
standalone
I know you
project,
didn't.
but
I know
I'm
you
just
don't.
saying it's another key element in this series of projects, and to result, a lot of the economic damage came from the airport being closed. So, all right, thanks. I'd like to make a motion.
Thank you. Let me just double check if there are any other comments or questions online. Do you see anything?
Seeing none.
Okay, so I'd like to move to accept the contract agreement between TRFMA and Kimley Horn to perform the airport flood project 30 and 60% design for not to exceed $1.1+ million.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to item 4, presentation discussion of Truckee River Rock to McCarran Reach Flood Project 30% design report from JUB Engineering. I believe this is also you, Director Robeson.
Well, we're very excited to finally get to the 30% here and get, like I said in the other presentation, a better estimate of cost. And so we're really starting to see the clarity of it and what we have to do about it. I'm going to just take the first few slides and then I'm going to hand it off to Shane Dyer, who is the project leader on this project and also the vice president of JUB. You have them like, bunches of them, okay. Next slide, please. So the agenda here, and I want to just state the goal, Rock to McCarran Reach Flood Project is to provide flood mitigation for the 100-year and 117-year event. And because we talk about the park all the time, that seems to get lost in the equation. That is by far the most important part of this. It protects both the North Bank and the South Bank. It protects the airport, Reno industrial area, and the West Sparks industrial area. It protects a lot. And so in addition, we are trying to do, while we do this, to spread the river out to enhance habitat, geomorphic function, and provide recreational opportunities as well. So we're trying to do multiple use here when we're doing this project, but without killing the budget. Next slide, please. So the alternatives analysis was already done. We went through that. There were literally multiple hundreds of scenarios run, and we had multiple meetings. I'll show you on it and the next slide how much public input we had. And we came back with a preferred alternative for that. Then we did the park where we had 2 major approaches, and we came back with a alternative on that. And the alternative was to have a corridor move the river for the river part, and to have in the detention basin a recreational complex park, and in the river corridor part, more of a natural park. Next slide, please. So this is the community outreach. I know it's small because there were so many of them. But you can see that even all the way down to the very end here, just on the 3rd of June, we had a community outreach workshop, which used to be our working groups. We had literally many technical advisory committees with public input, working groups, and then an in-person meeting back in 2025. We received hundreds of comments. It's closing, it's well over, I believe it's well over 300 at this point when you add all the comments together. And there are themes in those comments. One was there was a real hunger for some sort of park there that had ball fields, that was a recreational complex. There was also concern for environmental impacts. And what we attempted to do with our analysis and everything was to balance those concerns with that hunger or need and come up with something that was cost effective. That was our goal once we heard all those comments. And by the way, another key thing is recreation is in our plans. It's not like I just said, poof, recreation. That has been in the plan all the way dating back to the 2000s. And as Councilman Doer might say, hey, that's been in there a long time. So
2009 anyway.
yeah. So anyways, that it's
When the
not like we're
legislature-
introducing this. It's part of the plan, but we have to do it in such a way that it does not endanger the rest of the project. That's the key. We want to get it done in a quick time frame, and we want to get it done and not jeopardize the rest of the flood project with it. And that's what I think we're trying to do with this balance. So with that, I think I'm going to give it over to Shane for the design criteria and going forward.
Great, thanks, George. Excited to be here, happy to present this. It's been a long time in the making, right? And you've heard a lot about this, so we're gonna go pretty quick. I think a lot of it's gonna feel familiar, but some of it may not, so feel free to slow me down and ask questions. So the key design criteria for this 30% was essentially the 117-year flood, which represents the 1997 flood. And then in addition to that, 3 feet of freeboard on top of the 117, which is a very conservative design right now. So we're 117 plus 3. And then another thing that was critical to this was evaluating those downstream impacts of the 100-year flood. And we could not go above 2,400 CFS because that was the agreement with the tribe, right? And so it's a make or break design criteria. We have to hit it. And then another kind of newer design criteria was to protect the recreation complex. This is something that evolved as we created that internal berm, created the park, and then we're like, well, we don't want the park to flood that often, so we're protecting the park up to about 50 to 75 years so that the park isn't always flooding. It only takes off the top of the peak in the big storms. And then attenuate flows. Obviously, we're going to do our best to attenuate and to slow down that storm. And those were those key design criteria. So next slide. So I'm going to go over these in 4 different kind of key design features and talk about the features: the river corridor, the environmental, the transportation, and then get to the nature park and recreation design. Next slide. So in the flood river corridor, the main components include the levees, which is the 3 feet of freeboard, and I'm going to show you a little bit more about them. The internal berm, which separates the river corridor and the park area. And then the geomorphology was a huge portion of this, understanding how to create the plan form and the geometry of the river and create the correct width of meander belt and all of the geomorphology that comes along with that, and then optimizing it. So we went through tons of iterations to make just the river corridor work. And the river corridor, when I say that, it's between the internal berm, which is in the middle, and north up to the levee against Sparks. So it's where the river is, that's the river corridor. All right, so next slide.
Stop real quick.
Yeah,
The internal berm, where is the walking and biking path? Is that on the north or is it the internal berm?
so both. We have paved ones on the the north levee, the internal berm, and the south levee. And
Okay.
we'll show some slides that hit that a little better, that'll be really visible. That's a great question. All right, so on this slide, I'm really just trying to box the north levee for you there. And that's to scale in this drawing, so it kind of gives you an idea of how it grows as you go there down the river and the water gets deeper. And then next slide. So,
Let me take this.
yeah, go ahead.
This is. I've worked as hard as I can to keep flood walls off this thing, okay? Near the rock bridge.
Could you turn on your mic?
Oh,
sir?
sorry.
Please, thank you.
Near the rock bridge for about 300 feet, there is a situation where it's super crowded. We have a power line, a major power line, and it comes down right there in the middle of everything. The private properties come up right really close. And so we have all this stuff going on right there, and it creates very little room. So what we looked at, originally, they had it at about 500 feet. We had a meeting, I said, no, we need to really engineer this and make it as short as possible. And it's also in many cases a hybrid levee flood wall, so it doesn't pop up too high off the levee. But right by the bridge there for 300 feet, there is a levee. And I will tell you, when we do the TRFMA design, there are some places you just cannot do it without a flood wall against some of the very tight areas where they have the canal and a pond, their major pond. And so we're trying to build off those a slight flood wall. So there's only a couple of places here and there, but we are trying to minimize them to, a few hundred feet here and there over the whole several mile length. But I can't say I can do no flood wall nowhere. This spot just wasn't.
So you know what my issue is. We have this beautiful river runs through our city.
Right.
That if we flood wall it off, then we don't have access.
Right,
We
and what's
definitely
cool
don't want
about,
that.
what's cool about this 300 feet, there's no access issue. It goes right up against private property,
Okay.
and it goes right up where the bridge is, and there's no access there. It's
And the
a,
trail's on the inside of the wall. so
and
the
this trail's
trail's
on, towards the
riverside.
river.
Okay.
Yeah, so you see the river, you don't ever get behind a wall.
The long-term plan is to put housing along this river for
Very aware,
sparks.
yes,
So
yeah.
walling us off is not a good idea.
Yeah, and we're trying to minimize that, and like I said, we spent extra time to engineer this and make it as small as possible, the length and also the access and also the height of it above the path and levee.
What are we talking about height above the levee?
So the way we did it in this particular section, we did a small levee and then a little flood wall above it. We couldn't fit a big one.
I mean,
So it's
big
like
enough that
probably
the average person could step over it?
2
Okay.
to 3 feet of just wall on top of a berm.
That's good enough for me. If you can step over it and have access to the river, I'm good.
I mean, I better double check, but I'm thinking 2 to 3 feet is,
We're not talking a 5 or 6 foot.
no, not in
No.
this spot.
No, and like I said, even there, it's for 300 feet. There's no access, even if it was just a levee, there's no access from the north of there into that because of the private property and the steep come down from the bridge deck.
All that could change in the future, though.
Yes,
Once this is in, it's in forever.
yeah. Well, let's hope so.
If that, one of the big problems there is that FedEx property's right there. And if like a developer came in and wanted to replace that portion of levee for 300 feet and remove the flood wall, it would not be hard. They just need more space. So if they owned that land, it would be no problem for them to replace 300 feet of levee.
So as long as we can step over it, I'm good with it. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, just on that point, I mean, there is no forever, right? In Reno, we do have flood walls in downtown, but the land is built high enough behind the flood walls that were installed that you can see over it. And in fact, now, right now. They're putting in the Riverside berm, they're elevating it higher by, what, a foot or two?
Yes.
And there's still houses. The difference here is there's a road between the wall and the houses. They're not butted right up to the river, but they're all very, I'll call them higher end or very well-appointed homes. They're not mansions, but they have both river view and river access. So I guess my only point is that there's so many ways to do this, and even when we do it, there might be, like you guys are saying, a future change if they want to utilize some of their land to, to make the access in that area wider. That's one way, and then the other way is just, 20, 30 years later, you might be redoing it to achieve a different goal. I mean, I'll just remind you, they're remapping in Reno and saying what areas are in or out of the floodplain. This is far away from the river down in South Reno. And just, even, 15 years ago, they did a remap and put 300 homes in the floodplain. Now they just did a remap and took half of those homes out of the floodplain and added another 150 homes or something into the floodplain, or another 270 properties that they claim never flooded. So, I mean, as we get better technical information, we're going to learn more, and even the things that we're doing now may be superseded by future technical information. So anyway, I'd just say never. Life's very evolving and changing, and mapping tools and technology and so on. So anyway, I totally get, though, your goal, which is not to have, this blocked off by a 10-foot wall where you can't see over or even know there's a river there. And unfortunately, I will say this, totally on an aside, that, as I drive down I-80 now, I mean, RTC is putting in ever higher walls, really high walls, and it's getting harder ever to see, the mountains from I-80 because of the effort to protect all the residents on either side. And you can think of a road as a river. They're protecting from sound, we're protecting from water, but they seem to be getting into ever higher walls. It's been interesting. So anyway.
Great, thank you. Next slide, Marty. Okay, so this one really encompasses that internal berm, and here, Mary, you can actually start to see like the path that you were talking about, and we do a better job later of even showing those like in highlights, but you can see that path that goes right down the middle. That's the internal berm. And then next slide, this shows us the south levee. And this goes along Mill Street and McCarran.
So how do you access, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Please.
But how do you access from the north?
From the north, if you're on the trail, like on the Tahoe Pyramid Trail,
You have to come over McCarran or Rock?
you have to, you come down to McCarran, and then there's a pedestrian bridge,
Okay.
and you have to come across at that point on McCarran, on the pedestrian bridge. And then we're actually connecting it with a walkway under McCarran to get back through, because the bridge on McCarran is on the east side of the bridge.
Correct.
And you have to get across McCarran, so there's no connection. And so we're actually, in the design, we're putting a connection the same way that it is on the north, how it goes under.
Right.
We're doing the same thing on the south side to get back so people can get to the park.
So if I'm on the southbound on McCarran, and we ride our bicycles down there on occasion, we go under the bridge and then access the south from underneath McCarran? Or would I have to go I have to cross and then go southbound on the northbound side of McCarran?
You would go on the red pedestrian bridge that's just east of McCarran.
Right, so you have to cross,
And then-
you can't stay on the travel lane side.
If you were going southbound on McCarran, there'll be a way to just jump into the park, like right off so right there, there's going to be an emergency access, egress, ingress, and that'll get you right onto the levee top as well. And
I guess what I'm trying to understand is if I'm taking my family, or Councilman Abbott and I are riding our bicycles, we travel southbound on McCarran, we stay on the right-hand side. Is there a way for me to access the park without crossing McCarran and then going across the pedestrian bridge on the east side of McCarran? Is there a way to
If I
access
may,
the park?
I think my understanding of how this is being built is that before you cross the bridge going south, like you said, you would be able to hop off and get on the trail on the north bank. If you want to get to the park that has the more, the soccer fields and all, you'd go over the bridge and hop off once you hit the other bank onto that trail. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could
Yeah,
do
it
that.
sounds like you would just take a right and there would be like emergency.
An
There's an emergency access there.
You
You can
could've
jump right on the
jumped in
levees,
there.
right there on the right, if you're actually on the road.
Yes.
And if you wanted to be on the trail, you could jump off before the
I
bridge.
don't want to be on the road.
You want to be on the
Ever
trail?
ridden on McCarran.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
I
very
mean,
safe.
I think a lot, like in the future, if apartments are built and everything, I think a lot of people, this is just me talking here, but I think a lot of people will access the North Trail from Glendale Park, and then they'll go down to the bridge and the Red Bridge and cross over from Sparks. I think that keeps them out of the main, you're not on road traffic at all doing that, and you're on a side road to begin with, and there's parking there.
And where's the Red Bridge, though?
The Red Bridge is just east of the McCarran Bridge.
Literally
It's a
parallels
pedestrian
McCarran
bridge.
on the
Yeah.
east side of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a dedicated pedestrian bridge.
Okay.
Great questions. Love them.
Yeah, I would just want to see some more access. So if you can help me out to visualize what you're talking about, I'd be happy with that. But if I'm on the travel lane side or the west side of McCarran, traveling south, I don't want to have to cross McCarran 6 lanes to access the park.
Yeah.
No, there will be, well,
Because
if
then
you
I'd
were
have
in
to do
a,
it twice, right?
if
I'd
you
have
were
to
on a
cross and-
bike, you would actually probably take that emergency entrance because the bikes will be able to do that, but not cars.
Right.
Okay. If you were in a car, you would probably go around to not McCarran Mill and come in and take the parking. There's hundreds of
Yeah.
parking spots for that.
Yeah, I'm more concerned with pedestrian and bicycling.
Yeah, and I think Glendale is the answer for that because you're on a side street, there's plenty of parking. Get out your bike, take it out. You're on the trail. You're on the main Reno Pyramid or Tahoe Pyramid Trail. You can go along there and then you can go across the Red Bridge and get to the park. That's what I think will happen most in the future if there's apartments there.
There's going to be an exhibit coming up that might help this.
Thank you.
And then I think
Yeah.
that we can enhance that exhibit to show access. It's really site specific, but we can show how it ties in off and prepare that exhibit for you later
I
too.
mean, that's the hard part from Sparks is accessing anything south of the river.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's not conducive. I mean, we can get to the north part of it, obviously. But we put in a park, we put in the nature, all that. We don't want to wall off the people from Sparks.
No,
a good comment.
we're not doing that.
So if there's a detail, I'd love to see it.
There will be here in a minute of the trails,
All right.
focusing on
It
trails.
doesn't show exactly what you're looking for, but I think we could expand it a little bit to show that. Go ahead, Marty, next slide. So this next one just really makes it clear where the retention basin area is, and this is the, let me keep going, or?
Yeah, they're just side.
Okay, so this just flood basin area and really shows very clearly where the water's going to be retained. So, yeah, next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to quick run through, and I think you've probably seen versions of these, but this is going to just show you, this is the average low flow. The blue is where the water's going to be in low flow in average summers. This is what it's going to look like. Not an average summer, I'm saying the average of the low flow. So in a low flow condition, this is what it's going to look like. And then,
Can you explain? I mean, what is this red?
so that's just terrain. Okay, the blue is what you're focusing on here. The blue is, so the colors are elevation banding. So it's kind of, the red is higher elevation and it goes into the green, and then the yellow is the lower elevation. And really what you're looking at is, what I'm trying to show here is at 350 CFS, the river is designed to be flowing full. It's not going to be just one band. It's still going to be a living, meandering river during that low flow condition. Does that
But
make
it'll
sense?
be contained in the river, I think is what you're trying to
Yes.
say, not on the lands.
Yes. Yeah, it'll be right where all the blue is where that river will be during that condition. And then we'll go through all these conditions.
And just let me add, there's, in a previous life, I used to be an in-stream flow specialist. There's what's called alcoves. You can see at least two of them that are alcoves where the water backs up. That's ideal habitat for young fish to grow in. And also the whole area is habitat enhanced and optimized. So hopefully this will become a better area. Right now, it's very tamed and forced and straight. So, just getting this and moving it, while we're moving it, we're trying to optimize it because it really doesn't cost that much to do it right versus do it stupid. Anyways, that's a key thing. Can you show one of the alcoves, Marty? Do you know what I'm talking about there? Yeah, there you go. Right there off the river, that backwatering, yeah, that's called an alcove, and that's a major habitat area. If they ever fully reintroduce cutthroat to that, cutthroat will really actually choose on that, especially in the young parts of their life. So it's not just a flood project. It does have a lot of other elements to it for habitat and environment.
Yeah, thank you, George. And all that was really very intentional. The design is very intentional. The radius on the curves, like every aspect of this design is very intentional and well thought out. And some of the highlights obviously are those alcoves and the habitat creation. Okay, so next slide. This gives us a 3-year event. So you start to see the water at about 5,000 CFS, what that's going to look like. Obviously fully contained, all the side channels fully activated. And then we go to the next one.
Hold on. I want to just say another thing. You see the area in red on the upstream side. Marty, can you just highlight that? It's where that red area is. It's like a red island. Those are all mature trees that we're keeping. So they strategically kept places where we had mature trees to be able to keep as much shading as possible going forward, plus they're planting more trees. But the point is that you want to, take the areas you have and really enhance them. The second thing about that island is see how in a 3-year event, the water's up. That's going to recharge the aquifers there and allow those trees to thrive and be able to grow because they will have adequate water most of the time in that area from groundwater recharge.
Thank you. Next slide, we go to the 50-year event. We start to really see the entire floodplain activated there, not the entire river corridor activated there essentially, with a little bit of dryness where some of those existing trees are that we're keeping. But, that's that 50-year. And then we jump up to the 100-year. And this is really when we get the entire recreation area activated, 20,000 plus CFS.
Just to add that, the reason we wait to activate is one thing, Reno really wanted the parks when they commented to be protected to a certain level. But the other thing is, it's more effective to wait and allow all that water to come in during those high flow events because it attenuates the very highest flows. So it's strategic, and they did lots of runs to optimize that as well. So, really well thought out with their hydraulic engineering and geomorphology on that.
So question. So that serves as like a stormwater detention basin.
Yes,
It fills and then it lets the water out more slowly.
Right.
Is that
It
what you're
takes the
saying?
peak off the top of the hydrograph so
Yeah.
that the top of the flood comes down a little bit.
Yeah, good.
What is that flow that would come out the other end?
20,000.
No,
Oh, like how it reduces it?
Yeah, how much does it reduce it? So from 20,000 reduces it to what's coming under the McCarran Bridge?
Or was it like 24 and it goes down to 20?
I can't remember the most recent figures, but we were dangling figures between 300 and 500 CFS, if I remember right.
So, and that's,
So it's a substantial reduction.
yes, it is from the baseline. If we were to, the key there is that it could go up a ton, right? And so we're keeping it level or below. And that's what makes it so, that's challenging, right?
That also helps with our tribal agreement.
Right.
To not get over 2,400. You know, I would rather stay well below the 2,400 increase.
All right, next slide. Okay, so on this one, I wanted to talk about the revetment. This is the erosion protection. You can kind of zoom in there. It's pretty small on this screen. So everywhere in black, so we worked really hard on creating reducing the erosion protection to the extent possible. So in a lot of these projects, you'll see riprap all the way down all the levee, all the way down the banks, and we tried to isolate it as best we could. And then in the places that we do have it, we're using a lot of bioengineering techniques and like vegetated riprap. We're trying to not do just straight riprap. We're trying to make it a very natural environment. So where these black areas are, these are our hot spots. And these are where we can't, the velocity, we couldn't get it any lower and we had to do protection. And so the next slide goes through what some of those.
Whoa, I want to see right there by the rock bridge, that's on the far left side of that photo. See how black that is? That's unavoidable because the river is constrained right there because of the bridge. You can't do anything really about that. But there were a lot of people that wanted to propose keeping it fairly constrained all the way through. Then you would have to do more riprap like what's there. Riprap is very expensive, it's poor habitat, and it's ugly. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to minimize that. Expensive, poor habitat, ugly. I wanted to keep that out of this design as much as we could. Some places it's unavoidable. Every curve of this river was argued over. Like, is that curve too tight? Is that curve too loose? To make sure we minimized the level of revetment there. So that's the idea, is to minimize that as much as possible, but also, not go too far where you're increasing cost. So you wanted to balance that, but really the idea is to minimize revetment if you can.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, next slide. So this is just some examples of what we're planning to use on the project itself. Obviously, top left, riprap, that's what we're trying to avoid. There's places where it's unavoidable, like in the water, but we're trying to get rid of that. The next one, the bank attached log jams, we've got woody debris and log jams planned for it. It's a very natural bioengineering technique that is great for these natural systems. The vegetated riprap is definitely preferable to the riprap itself, where we do vegetation in them. The root wads, we have root wads proposed, but based on cost, it may be more log jams and woody debris. And then some vegetated articulated concrete block. We have some places where that might make more sense than just straight riprap, because the velocities get up into the 19, 20 feet per second, where you need like 6-foot boulders. And so that's where you start to have to use something like an articulated concrete block. And then we also have some vegetated geocell potential that can look really good. They kind of show the progression of what it can look like. It'd be the green ideally on those. So that's kind of what some of that looks like. Go ahead. Thank you, Marty. All right, now we're going to jump into a cross section here this is one of the longest cross sections in the design here that goes across. So that's where we're going to be looking at. And we're going to be going from the north to the south, where that red is circled. Go ahead, Marty. And so here we have a video to play from the north to the south, like it was shown on that plan.
And are we looking downstream or upstream when we're looking at?
This would be looking, I think, downstream. Yep.
Yeah, you're looking downstream for sure.
So you see that first secondary channel, that's kind of the old river right there. And then you go into that's the retained old growth tree stand that we have there. Then you get into one of those side channels. Then this is where we have, terracing, vegetation, terracing. Go ahead. Then this is the main channel. It's a huge area. It starts to put it in perspective when you look at it like this. Now, there's the internal berm there
With the person on top.
and the paved path. And then this gets into the recreational area there.
That's what we call the linear park right there, but where that person is, it becomes ball fields.
Then you've got the ball fields.
And you can see how long that goes for.
It's a pretty big space. And then you've got the south levee along Mill. So I think that the idea there is to give you, and this is on the posted on the TRFMA website as well, so you can study it if you want to, but it gives you an idea of what's going on there as you go across and what it might look like. Next slide. All right, that's it for the river corridor. We're going to jump into some of the environmental design aspects of the project. So we started the process with an environmental scan, and they went in, they looked at all the existing conditions. They found that the river was very degraded, that the habitat wasn't great, and then they made a whole bunch of recommendations on what we should do as we design the habitat, like using woody material, like using terracing, backwater channels, retaining existing vegetation. Those are all things that came out in that scan, and those are things that we did in the design. One of the big findings, up to 30%, was this Mexican-Brazilian free-tailed bat. We've met with the Department of Wildlife. They're a state-listed species. They're not a threatened species or an endangered species, but they're a state-listed species. They live under the McCarran Bridge seasonally, not all the time. And so we've been working with Department of Wildlife on that path that we are proposing to connect the trails on what we would need to do to mitigate the situation. Can we do it? The answers so far have been, yes, you can do it. There's likely some mitigation that's going to happen. So we don't have finals on that, but they're working closely and we have a great relationship with them.
I have a question on that one.
Yeah.
When you said the bats are seasonal, so when are they there? What season?
They go away in the winter.
Go away
They
in the
down
winter.
to Mexico and
So-
Brazil.
And they're here in the summer?
And
But they're here in the summer.
They're in-
So my question was, later when we get to discussing the recreation elements, one thing I was wondering is the use of the lights, and does that come into play with the bats at all?
Yeah, so that was one of the comments. Nevada Department of Wildlife gave us a list of things that we need to consider. One of them was lighting. And the closest light that we have proposed is almost like 900 feet away, and it's dark sky, so it only points down. So that really wasn't an issue for them. But then what about lighting under the bridge for safety in the walkway?
Right.
So yes, those are considerations like maybe that we'll have to work through in
Okay.
the final design, right? We're at 30, but do we not have lights?
Right. Well, I had actually thought about that, is that maybe this park is just open to sunset, for a plane. If that has to be an accommodation for the bats, even if
They talked about, NDOW talked about.
if we need the
gates.
lights, at path level under the bridge, just so you can see where you're walking,
Oh, yeah.
versus lighting up everything, and versus maybe a mitigation is not having lighted fields, just cutting off play at 8 or whatever. So,
One of their initial comments was they want to gate it, and I don't know if that's
Oh.
going to go well.
well, especially in the summer.
Yeah, I don't think that.
I mean, when the bats are there, that's why I was asking, are they there in the spring, fall, just the summer? I don't know.
So we'll have to work with
I
them.
don't think this is a good plan to gate the path. I mean, it'll probably be broken down. Most people don't really care about these things, you know?
Yes, I
We
agree
care
with
about it, but not the average person doesn't even really know about it or know that it's a problem. So just some thoughts. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And we're working with them, and we'll have more information as the design progresses as to where that's gone.
Okay.
The terrace zones are a major part of this design and how often they inundate, and then which vegetative communities go in those terrace zones. If you zoom out a little bit, you can see the image here. Really, you can see those terrace zones, like the 0 to 1 and the, it's hard for me to see, 1 to 3 year.
Those are blue.
Yeah.
Green.
I have it here. Yeah, and then the 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 75. So you can kind of see those are the terracing. The terracings were also designed very, very intentionally, trying to keep as much wetted as we could in the low flows to keep the vegetation. And then you're gonna see in a later slide is like we had 4 very distinct vegetative designed communities that allow us to have these different habitat zones. And then the last thing is the monitoring and success criteria. So one of the things that we did is we kind of started at the end. We're like, okay, if this is successful, what is it going to look like from a monitoring perspective? What are we going to have? And so we talked about how we're going to measure success and what that'll look like. And that helps us to kind of formulate the design so that we can be successful with our success criteria. Next slide. Okay, this one was just to highlight the vegetation that we worked hard to protect. So these are the mature tree stands that are staying. You can see them there outlined, and those are going to create immediate shading and habitat right after, construction. And it's great that we don't have to lose those mature tree stands. All right, the environmental design in the river corridor, obviously the meander belt is a huge aspect of that. So it's 600 to 800 feet based on the river characteristics in this. And we were able to meet that the entire length of the river here. In an urban setting, it's very rare to be able to get a meander belt when you're doing these projects in an urban setting, right? We had a unique ability to have as much space as we needed. Except right at the bridges. We don't need it as it has to constrict to go through those bridges. The alternative revetment types, I've already spoken to this. We're really trying to reduce the riprap and increase the bioengineering. Habitat creation, focused on creating habitat, the correct habitat at the correct terraces. And then the terraces having unique terrace zoned and vegetated communities for the species list that we have, the preservation of the tree stands, and then we also use reference site as we were creating these vegetated terraces, meaning like past the other projects, 102, McCarran Ranch, Lockwood, Mustang. These are places that have success with successful vegetation, so we're using them as references. What kind of plants should we be planting? What was successful? What wasn't successful? So that's part of all this environmental design, packaging it together and putting it forward. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a little bit more on the low impact design for the project. We're going to use bioswales, which essentially you can see on the bottom right hand, like in a parking lot, rather than having the land hump up, it goes down, the water goes into it and infiltrates straight in. So we're doing things like this is what low impact design elements are, things like bioswales. We also have a number of bioswales throughout it, but there's one proposed on the linear park there that's circled. Runoff controls, the park is unique because there's an internal berm. No water can run off into the river. And so from an environmental concern perspective of, okay, you're gonna, pesticides or fertilizers getting irrigated and running directly into the river and hurting, the habitat, that's not going to happen because of the internal berm. So no direct runoff is going to happen in like just general irrigation in small storms. It will happen in above 50, in those large storms, there will be events like that, but that's not what's going to, that'll be a plug, but it's not a constant, consistent issue where there's runoff going on into the river. Dark sky lighting, obviously, we're going to use the lighting that only points down and doesn't like illuminate everything. That's a big issue in the communities. Treated effluent, we plan to use the treated effluent or secondary water for the irrigation on this. We need to work on that a little bit, but that's the goal. We need to coordinate that. Strategic landscaping, our landscaping crews with Wood Rogers are working hard to reduce urban heat and island effects and just have a really modern and forward-thinking, low-impact design landscaping. So those are aspects, kind of the other aspect of the entire environmental design on the more developed side.
Question. I'm so impressed with the stuff you've incorporated here because these are things people talk about for the last 25 years, but you rarely see these implemented in development here in Reno. An example is this bioswale. And, when we did, for example, the Stonegate PUD, there was a huge debate about how many of these techniques to incorporate, and there was some pushback, even from council members. Well, that's a bridge too far, or why would we only have sidewalk on one side of the street instead of two, or, using low-impact development designs, having a bioswale. There were people that just weren't that familiar with them and were concerned they wouldn't work or weren't relevant or would cost too much. And what you're really doing here is we often hear about xeriscape gardens that are for display, education. But a lot of these features here are basically that. They're going to be educating our whole development community about some different ways to go about making parking lots, for example, So I really commend you, Shane, and the whole team that's working on this because you're actually doing it. You're understanding that we're bringing in recreation into a natural environment and you're doing it in a way that is going to complement and not harm the natural environment. When you spoke about, and I don't exactly know how, I'm going to advocate for them building these fields in the right way to begin with, where they have to apply far fewer, if any, pesticides, because there's a way to just build the soil. We had experts come in here and give a design workshop for like 50 people 10 years ago, including Sparks, Reno, Carson City. People came to learn about how to build a field, okay, and create the soil layers so that you're not having to constantly apply pesticides. And I hope when we get to those parts that we can even take this even to the next step in terms of designing the recreational areas too. But anyway, kudos. And I think that you should think about which aspects of this you may want to have, signage in here somewhere when people visit and they can learn about some of this stuff and how it works. And I'm not saying it's perfect. And even you showed earlier where you basically had to intersperse concrete with the land. And I don't recall the term for that. Articulated concrete. It's not beautiful, but it works, I mean, George earlier said, well, piles of rocks aren't too beautiful either. But you're saying we have to do some of this because it's a way of making the land resist flooding, erosion better. So anyway, I think there's things here that will have much wider application in our community. So thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, next slide. We're getting there. I know this is getting long here. Transportation, so just going to quickly go through the roads and parking layout that were developed during the 30% and the site access. There's going to be 2 site access proposed on the Mill Street and then 2 ingress for emergency on Rock and McCarran. Would you, next slide please, Marty. So here you can actually see them. The 2 in green on Mill, that's going to be the general way that you're going to access the recreation area and the park. And then you've got the emergency access locations on the Mill and McCarran in red. Right now, it's designed with a significant number of parking in the parking lots. There's been talk about potentially taking a look at that, reducing them, phasing it based on what kind of sports are being played at those fields. But this is the layout. This is the general layout. You can see the roads where they go and how that parking works.
So is the stuff that's like gridded, is that the parking, and then the fields are the other open
The
areas?
the white is the open area,
I see,
and the grids are the parking areas.
gotcha.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
it is. And I don't know if you've been to Golden Eagle much, like during the football events. When you get those sports fields overlapping, showing up early, and then everyone's parking out on the dirt and on the riprap, and so.
Is it possible on this parking, I know I have heard that there is discussion about it, but is it possible to have set up remote parking with buses for, especially for bigger events? If you're going to have big soccer tournaments or something here, is it possible to have either rental, some arrangement with somebody like GSR that has a lot of parkings nearby where they could just shuttle over for a 10-minute shuttle instead of parking right on the fields? That's just something to look at. I'm not saying that's the best way, but just to reduce this parking issue.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And then do a deal where all the people stay at GSR and get bused from the hotel,
And Nugget, okay. I think this is going to be a big enhancement for both hotels,
Right.
both Nugget and GSR.
Yes.
What's that?
All right, next slide there. All right, that was it for the transportation. Now we're just going to jump into the nature park and recreation complex and what we've done.
Before you leave that, just the mayor had the point earlier, just how do you get there and how do you prevent the water from getting out when it's flooding? How do can you zoom in there again? Into where you enter the parking? What is there, a flood wall there or something that closes?
See how there's a ramp that goes, you go in and then you ramp up and then back down.
Okay, so there is no like flood wall?
There's no flood wall or anything. You actually go up and over
Gotcha.
the levee.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so Nature Park, we had the public outreach performed on the two different concepts, the nature park or the recreation complex, and then it was selected through those meetings and then by the TAC, and then eventually you approved this combination park, which was both the nature park and the recreation park. And the idea here that the theming that it's going to be a cohesive park framework that celebrates the Truckee River's natural processes, history, and community value. Next slide, please. So here's the park. And I think you've been obviously looking at pictures of this all day, but it's pretty awesome. It's pretty small there. You can kind of see you have the river access. You have there's a bunch of trails. We're going to have another slide that shows them better. There's 3 river access points. There's the linear park. The iconic park, yeah, as she strolls, I'll go over those. There's the middle linear adventure park, a major bioswale, and then you've got the sports complexes. You've got, asphalt trail on the internal berm, and then more river access if you're floating from top to bottom, with trails that take you all the way from the bottom to the top. You've got, the access where you can get onto the path right from McCarran there.
Just turn this on. Now that we're talking about that piece of it, if you are, like Mayor Lawson said, on the west side of McCarran traveling south, how would you access?
You're on the west side traveling south.
Yes.
I think you would just roll, there's an emergency access point there. You'll just roll right into the park, right onto
You're on a bike.
Yes, if you're on a bike.
Talking
Yeah.
about walking or biking.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're on McCarran, you would just roll right in and be right on the levee. There'll be an access point right there if you're on the west side going south.
If you're in a car, you have to go around a mill.
It's talking basically about bicycling and walking. So there's a bridge that goes across the.
Can you go to this, Marty, can you go to the one with all the trails? I think that's going to help a lot more than this. It's after. Just go to the, there we go. Now blow into that at the area, yes. So you can see where that's underneath there. Then there's that emergency access about halfway down. It's orange. You can see that orange thing. That means it's paved.
Right, this is where I don't know if you can.
Well, you can ask Marty to do it.
There's an existing access point where we don't have to fight with dot over it.
It's where the gate to the old,
Yeah, okay.
the old monastery is.
Yeah, right there, we're like right there. See, there's an existing access point right there, already existing on the Karen, so we don't have to like.
That's the
column.
the old road to the
Yeah.
monastery.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's gonna be.
But how do I get across the river? I have to be on McCarran?
No, underneath the bridge there, see where the orange is going underneath the bridge? That's a
Is there
trail
a
on the
bridge
south.
underneath there is what you're
No,
telling me?
I see what you're saying. You're saying, are we improving McCarran? We're not.
What I'm saying is if I'm on the west side traveling south, I have to get back on McCarran on my bicycle or walking, or cross across the street, across to the east.
No,
Go across the pedestrian bridge and then cross back to the west again.
Isn't
you
there this
go
red bridge
underneath,
you
there's a
mentioned?
trail underneath the bridge.
But how do I get from the north to the south?
There is a red pedestrian
bridge.
trail dedicated.
Right.
Already, see it right there?
Yeah, if I'm going southbound, I need to cross McCarran to get to that
So
pedestrian.
then you would get off before and go under, like get off on the right. I think I see what you're saying now, like you
You see
get
what I'm
off,
saying is if I'm with my family,
get off and go under the bridge on the north side of the bridge. So you don't have to cross McCarran, get off.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's what we're talking about is access to the park.
You can also get off, turn right when you're on the Karen, get off, go under.
Yeah.
Well,
I think what we may want to look at, Shane, here is some sort of off-ramp. That's, they're already, I mean, I've walked down that.
Yeah.
It's not a real off-ramp, but I have walked down there. There is actually a pedestrian bridge on the west side as well, but it's very narrow.
We'll have to do some improvements on McCarran.
just, if you just give me access so I don't have to cross McCarran and then cross it again to get to the park if I'm walking or biking.
But do you mind if you go under the bridge to do it?
However we can get from the north to the south, that's fine. It's just, you see what my point is.
No, I think we need to have an off-ramp there on the north side of the bridge.
And if I may, also, what,
The bike lane along McCarran is only 3 feet wide.
So if you're on the trail coming from the east, there's a ramp that takes you up to McCarran, parallels it so you can cross that pedestrian bridge. The problem is, if you're coming from that direction and you want to get to the park, also on the south side, the trail's currently on the north side. You can cross the pedestrian bridge, but then you got to have some way to navigate
Get back across.
McCarran to get back onto the west side.
You go
There's
down
nothing
under.
currently.
Yeah, but there's
Under.
going to be a trail under the bridge.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
That was not clear.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I
Right
think
there.
what,
Like that.
right
Yeah.
there, right there.
Down
Put the
and under.
curlicue.
There.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly
All
what
right.
it is, right there.
Okay, yeah,
That's
that
what's
was,
designed, the red.
Okay, that was what my clarification was. So I don't have to get on McCarran to cross the river.
No.
If you've ever ridden your bicycle down McCarran, it is a dangerous
Right.
sport.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
why we only have emergency access on McCarran, for instance. We don't want cars turning into that.
you bet.
finally caught on.
Clear as mud there. Okay, if you go back up a couple slides, we'll quick burn through a few more, like so down, one more. This is gonna be the linear adventure park. On the right, you can see kind of the reference where it is. It's against the river.
Can
And
you
then-
say what an adventure park is? I don't know.
It's going to be kind of, what they're going to do is like some boulders and maybe some things that you would climb on,
It's floodable.
but it's floodable.
Yeah. So I mean, it's more like a parkours, but using natural elements. Is that it?
Yeah.
Next element, next slide. This has some South Levee aesthetics. So we rendered up what the South Levee might look like while you're driving along Mill. And you can see the reference of where that is on the right there, but this is kind of what it might look like, something similar to this. Next
So
slide.
these are things that you're just not looking at a wall. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so you're just not looking at a bare
Levee.
berm, it's just
Yeah.
something to make it look good.
No
Looks
trees,
good.
though.
Yeah, there
Looks
won't be
good.
any trees. They got a little excited. There's a couple trees on that levee. Those aren't allowed. And then next slide is the path. And I think kind of taking just a zoom out look at this extensive trail system, the big dashed bold orange is the paved paths. And then the smaller yellow is kind of the nature trails in the river corridor.
What's the width of those?
So the paths on the tops are 10 feet wide. The paved paths are 10 feet wide, and then the nature paths are just nature paths.
They're
like,
going to just be for walking.
they're for walking paths. They're like anywhere. We don't have the design done on those yet, but it's like 3 to 4 feet, something like that, and compacted earth paths.
All right. I'm thinking about places to hide for homeless and unhoused.
Yeah.
And how do you patrol that?
Well, we're facing it already, if I may, at Oxbow. So we have a nature park built right on the river at the end of Dickerson Road. And the way that our rangers have been doing it is that they've made it a key stopping point on their tours. And they actually go and walk on the paths. And they may even have some all-terrain bikes to get further into the trail system.
Just throwing one more monkey wrench in here for you, but
Yeah.
that you do need to add the ability, because if it's not safe, people are not going to use it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will say this, that over the last several months, I mean, multiple months, like a year and a half, this area has had very low homeless since Green Vibe has been involved, as well as the River Rangers. So we're down to almost zero activity on this area. I know when it becomes a park, it'll become more of a magnet, though.
Yep, we're seeing an increase over at the marina even.
All right, next slide.
One question, though, before you leave this one. Is the idea where the yellow intersects with the orange, you wouldn't have a walking trail, you'd have just the asphalt. This is sort of about a third of the way in from the left. The yellow ends, it's just orange. Just a thought, as you get into that design, you may want a dual, walking and driving path there. So that the walkers aren't having to mix it up with the drivers, kind of thing. Sort of like what they did at Veterans Parkway. So there's the walking path is next to the driving path,
Okay.
okay?
This is a cool design, though.
Isn't it great?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exciting. Next slide, please.
That is it. This is the base versus the,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and just talk about this for a minute. When the original design, 30% design came out, it came out quite high, and the recreational was quite high. So I basically said, let's go back to the drawing board. And I promised, I said, look, if it's too much money, we can phase this, we can work for other funding sources, we can do whatever. And so what we did here is we created a phasing. And so what we thought, the people that were involved, this is what we thought was important for the first phase. First phase keeps all 8 fields. They are grass seed fields, so they'd be fields that would have that soil amendment you're talking about rather than roll on grass turf, which is more expensive. They would be, there is, the Adventure Park is still there, but not the iconic park that's in yellow over there. That iconic park is actually on dry ground, even during high floods, so you can do a kind of a conventional park there, but that's in phase 2. Then these other 2 fields that are more east-west are also in the later phase. The lighting is also in a later phase. The lighting is about $3.5 million alone. So just for the fixtures. So all of that, what we did is we got this down to a base cost of about 92 million. And actually, we reduced other costs by reducing revetments and some other things by really, like looking at every bend in the river. And we got this cost down to, with everything and all these park features, full supplemental was, I believe it was what, 104 something? 105? What was it?
With supplemental?
I'm sitting here talking off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's what we remember. You got it
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So anyways, that's the idea here. The original, the current cost I have in my plan is 87 million. And with inflation and stuff, 92 million is doable. 104 million is not doable unless we win some grants or something. So,
Question on that, Mike? Yeah. So I took a look at this in some detail. We both, Miguel and I did. And I guess a counterbalancing thought is we are bonding, right? Is that right? Or are we building?
no, we'll have to bond to build this
Right.
or loan.
Okay. So when you look at the increase in costs, like extra 10 million, essentially what you said from 93 to 105 or whatever, something in that range. It just, and when you look at the total cost of the project, I think that we may be being penny wise and pound foolish. So often what I've noted in government projects is when we do a phasing thing, we go, well, we'll do this part later. We don't do this part. Or we go, well, we'll rely on nonprofits. It's hard for them to raise $10 million. We're talking about they have to raise 10 million cash. When you're bonding for it, you're adding a little bit of an increase of payment each year, but to get to your total. So I'm not advocating one way or the other, but I am saying that I wouldn't just take it off the table and say not doable. I think that you have to look at the financing costs when we get there. Are interest rates low? Are they high? Where are they? Are we looking at 30-year, 40-year, only 20-year? All the things that will go into the financing package. I'm just suggesting it may be too early to make that decision. And then I also want to say, I was kind of confused when you were explaining it. Are you saying move forward with the green and hold the yellow, or move forward with the yellow and hold the green?
The ultimate decision to whether go full on, and do the supplemental or do a phased approach
Yeah,
is in the future.
Right.
Because we don't know. Like, what if we win that grant?
right.
And that puts $20 million more in our budget, then I can bond that, or not me, but you can. And ultimately, I have no say in that decision. It's your decision
Yeah.
as a board. And all I'm trying to do is inform you. So
But
I'm
is it the
giving,
yellow
I'm
or
giving
green?
us a way to be able to do this within the current strategic plan limitations.
Yeah.
Because I want this thing to be built. I do want that. Now, that's your decision, but I want it to be a project that is sustainable and doable. And so
George,
that's
again.
that's why I'm phasing. That's why we put the phasing.
All I'm asking is
Yeah.
green in phase 1 or yellow? That's all I'm asking.
Green is phase 1.
Thank you. I can't read
Yellow
this small.
is supplemental.
Okay,
And it's about a $12 million difference, actually. So, and like I said, there'll be future cost estimates that may tighten.
Right.
Because as they do better cost estimates, a lot of time the contingency goes down, and, there's a little bit of contingency on contingency in here.
right.
You know.
You do your value engineering, is that what you're suggesting?
We already did some value engineering to get this right, because it has to be sustainable within that plan to do the whole project, because that's what I'm tasked to do, is to do the whole Truckee Meadows flood project, not just this one. I want to do all of it. You know, I want you guys to be able to do all of it because all of it is what gets us safe, not part of it. So that's all I'm saying here. The ultimate decision, though, is not today to whether to phase or not to phase. It will be when we see where our budget is later. And the other thing to note is there is inflation, but our revenue is going up. So there's that too. So there's a lot of iffy maybe things going on. I try to capture them as best I can, but when I have better cost estimates on all the other projects, then I'll be able to say more. See what I'm saying? There's a lot more information we need before we make an absolute final decision. But I wanted to give that possibility here of what it could look like phased. And this is not the only way to phase this. We could have phased parking instead of the fields. And the way they designed it is that they phased it in such a way it would be easy to add the stuff from an engineering perspective or construction perspective. It was like the lighting, they would wire it out, but we just wouldn't have the receptacles, that kind of thing.
Maybe not build it at all, right? That field lighting.
Well, we'd have it all wired for that, but we don't have the receptacles yet. So, you know, but like I said, that's 3.5 million right there.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I think part of it is, I'll just check if there are any questions or comments from any of the folks online.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Want to make sure we didn't forget about you. Anybody else here from the body?
Okay. What's that? No, I'm good.
I just had a quick question. The motion that is in the packet,
You go to the motion on there, it's the same as on the end here. So everybody can see it.
yeah, I think the space in brackets, I just want to make sure you all sort of heard some of the discussion that has been going on, or do you need us to specify all of that within the motion?
Well, let me say a few things and see if I captured what concerns are. We need to make sure there's a good off-ramp area on the north side, on the west side of McCarran. That was one thing.
And to south,
What's that?
and on the south side. So if you're coming off McCarran, there's a way. Or do you turn on Mill?
Yeah,
I don't know.
That would probably be the best.
yeah. That was one thing I heard loud and clear. I did not hear any major recommendations like, hey, you really need to put this in the design. We are not making a decision. I think I agree with you, Councilman Durr. This is a very premature time
Yeah.
to make such a decision. However, I need to put that possibility
Yeah,
in
of course.
for the sake of
Absolutely.
the strategic plan.
I have a question, I guess, before the motion.
Yeah.
Years ago, and I think I know the answer, but years ago, there was to be an inclusion of some kind of amphitheater. You have the parking, you know, it's a night activity. Well, it could be day, but more often these amphitheaters, like at Bartley Ranch, they have an amphitheater that has seating. You wouldn't have to have seating. You could have just sitting on grass because even Bartley also has sitting on grass. So I didn't know if like a decision's been made at this point to drop something like that out, or is it not, you know, doesn't work with the overall concept design, or is that something you could think about later? Or?
Could you elaborate?
And I'm reminded too, like up at Lake Tahoe, you know, they have this Shakespeare area, which is integrated with water and land. At Bartley, there's no water, but there's an amphitheater. So I just wondered if it was considered.
We do have a main corridor for the soccer complex where they have like, there's a kind of thoroughfare and a big area where you could have festivals and food trucks.
Okay.
And things like that. It's not necessarily an amphitheater. Could you set up a stage and have a concert there? Absolutely. It's a big flat field. But yes, you could do that. If you wanted an actual amphitheater
Yeah.
with like a fixed stage,
Yeah.
I think we would have to put that up where the iconic park is or near that area, out of the flood. And, that would be a directive that you could give to George and he could give to me, and I could try to fit an amphitheater in there.
Let me give you one more example that might be closer to this, and maybe you've seen it. Over at Napa Valley, which we went and toured earlier in the project development, they actually have one built right into the side of the bank that floods.
I designed that.
Well, there you go. So I've been there.
Familiar with that, George?
Very familiar.
So all I'm saying is that they have it built right into their flood project that George designed. And I'm wondering if George is thinking about having you design something similar somewhere along in here. Even if you walk to it, on a trail or something.
The iconic park, I mean, it would be choose an iconic park or choose an amphitheater. Because you have the buildup there, so it's kind of natural down.
Yeah.
The only problem I see is Rock and Mill make a lot of noise.
Well, I was never suggesting it be there. I'm explaining that the one in Napa that you designed is built right into the riverbank.
Yeah.
And it's floodable. And all it is, just for those that haven't seen it,
It's a dry
series of
bypass, yeah.
It's a series of concrete platforms that you could either set up your chairs or sit on the concrete. I don't think that'd be that comfortable, but people do come there during the day and sit on the concrete, look at the water. So I just wondered, I'm not saying yes or no, but even if it's a third phase somewhere in the future, I think it might be good to identify an area, like I see an area just north of the yellow that might be a good spot for it. Do you know where I'm
And
talking
we
about?
could put that as a recommendation
Yeah,
to look for
thank you.
places. for
You're asking for
possible-
input, I'm giving you
Yeah.
some input.
No, we'll take a look at that. And
Okay,
I feel like if we do it, there's some spaces down in the floodable area that we could do it, and maybe it wouldn't look very traditional. It'd be more like a flat pad because needs to be floodable,
yeah,
but it would still be like an area where you could have a band or
Yeah.
an event. Maybe it's even up on the levee itself, an expanded area of the levee that's a little wider than normal, that they could almost make a stage, and then the people are down in the fields looking up
yeah.
onto the,
And just something to think about too, like often we think, well, the parking has to be right next to, but even at Bartley, you have to walk quite a ways from where you park to the amphitheater. In Iceland, at some of the hot springs, you have to park one place and you have to walk on a trail to where the hot spring itself is. So you don't, I just want you to think broadly that you could have the parking where you have it, but walk on a trail to get to the amphitheater kind of idea. So, okay.
My only other question before we move to a motion and public comment is asking for a timeline. If we do move to the 60% design, when do you think that would come back to the board?
There's actually a slide. Can we go a couple back or one back? I
Probably
think?
missed it. There we go.
So when it would be, step 3 is the next step to go to 60, and you didn't put a date on that, but we're thinking end of year-ish. On the slide, he didn't put a date.
we feel like we could have a draft to TRFMA by the end of this year, and then there'll be some back and forth with the TAC and the stakeholders and things. So early next year, sometime early next year, we could have some things to present to you.
Another thing is we will have to talk about the in-holding. If you look at this schedule, we go to construction, we will have to start dealing with the in-holding. We have been waiting for a government grant, and I'm going to ask some questions when I'm in Washington about it. And if it's not viable or not on the horizon, we may just need to go and get that property. I don't want to say any more about that because I'll get slapped from by the lawyer over there. But anyways, that's another consideration with the schedule.
Yeah, thanks for laying that out. Is there any public comment on this item?
Seeing none.
With that, I'll look for a motion from the
Yeah,
board.
I'm happy to make a motion if you could put that back up. So I'd make a motion to continue to 60% design, considering the recommendations we've discussed, evaluating.
Okay, we have a motion from Director Dewar. Is there a second?
Second?
Second from Mayor Lawson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
This is
Great work.
great visuals for the future. That's awesome.
I want to say that too. I already said it, but I'm going to say it again. Shane, your whole team, the public input process knitting these things together. I think we're going to have something so special here, dealing with our flooding, but also having a major attraction for our community that's strategically located between two main hotels and in reach distance to many other hotels. I think it's a huge compliment. And it's very modern. It's not Wild Waters, right? That's a whole separate kind of thing. But having this kind of thing in Reno, Nevada, I think is incredibly special. Situated right between Reno and Sparks, Sparks on the north, Reno on the south, right near the dividing line. I mean, it's just so very unique. And Marty, I gotta compliment your presentation skills today because you made it possible that we could actually read these very small, these very detailed exhibits. I've never seen anyone do it as well as you did it today. I haven't. So,
Don't try to hire her in Reno.
okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Thank you. Is there any other
Sparks is still on the table.
comments? There we go.
I just agree with my fellow board members and just have to applaud the team. It's incredible. This is a monumental project, and good job, George, as well, for leading and being on Zoom. I could see it really well, so thank you, Marty, as well. So really excited to move forward. Thank you all.
Thanks, Director Hill.
And also, I really think that you should put this particular section of our meeting as a clip out on your website so people that want to understand what the project is could listen to this 1 hour discussion and with all the good questions from, my colleagues here about what exactly is planned and not planned and why. I think it's excellent. I mean, even our discussion was very good.
Yeah, Marty's eyebrows went up and so did mine.
Yeah, we have a news posting about the 30% design. A news posting in the news section. So if you go to the news section of the website, I'm going to link this to the 30% design.
Yeah, this discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll cut it out. That's a good idea.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
it's Clara. I just wanted to also echo everything that was said, and good job to everybody. And it's really exciting. It's almost like a little bit of Christmas in June. So thank you.
Almost Christmas in July, but we got it in June instead. Thank you all for the discussion. We'll move on to our final public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Seeing none.
Then we'll close that and move on to any board member comments, requests, or any future agenda items. Is there anything from the body?
For me, I just would like if we could get kind of like a calendar of what's coming up for the board. That would be very helpful for future meetings. And I know we wanted to have that discussion of also visioning for the future of the flood board and what will look like as we put the pieces together here. That would be helpful to also get that on the calendar. Thank you.
Okay, and I will send out an email about all that because there are a lot of things going on, like Wadsworth Bridge. We'll probably have a dedication for that sometime in August. And also, I forgot to even say about Riverside. I can't even believe I forgot that, but that's a big deal too. On June 23rd, 10 a.m. So that's another big deal. And we've been a big part of that with Reno and with the Conservation District, all three of us working together hand in hand.
And that's the ribbon cutting on the Riverside berm. What was the date again?
June 23rd. June 23rd at 10 a.m.
Perfect.
And
Great.
do you know what part of the berm? I mean, it's a long project.
It's just on the north side of Keystone Bridge on the north bank.
By
I mean, not
McKinley?
north side, upstream side on the north bank.
On, like, at McKinley, in other words? Because that's.
Right where McKinley is, yes.
Oh. Okay.
But on the upstream side of the bridge there, yeah.
Great. With that, my only comment is happy early birthday, Director Robeson.
Also, yes, happy birthday, George, and happy birthday, Deborah. They have the same birthday.
Happy birthday to you both.
Deborah and I have the same birthday.
Okay,
and-
cool.
And I'm going to go on a road trip on Route 66
Good.
Cool.
because I am 66.
Nice. That's a great way to enjoy your birthday. Thank you all for the great discussion. Appreciate it. We'll adjourn our meeting at 10:39 today. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.